Hello and welcome to another episode of This Week in Cars. It is another week has gone by. This week was Thanksgiving week, and even though we had a 4-day weekend, there's still some good news to talk about. How was your Thanksgiving, Justin?
It was good. How about yours?
Not bad. We had a hot pot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
good.
and in some personal car news, we have acquired a project car, which we dubbed Project Saratoga. And the video is currently in progress, but you'll have to watch our video to find out what car that is.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. It's gonna be a lot of work, but I think we're prepared for it. Yeah, so let's move on to the car news. So for this week, I think the news that caught my attention the most was actually the Hyundai Elantra N. Yeah,
That was the
so
biggest news, I think.
right.
Yeah. Not much. Not many new car reviews this week.
Mhm.
So. So this is like the sports version of the Elantra. So
Right.
Hyundai's compact sedan.
Mhm. Yeah, it's funny because like I remember when I was younger, the Elantra was just kind of like an economy car. To a certain extent, it still is, but
I think it still is.
Right.
It competes with the Civic and Corolla.
yeah, but Hyundai has come so far in the last like not even 10 years, like the last 5 years, it has completely revolutionized their entire like global image. Um, to a point where this car is, I would say, somewhat desirable.
The Elantra or Elantra N?
Elantra N specifically. But
Hmm.
I would say like the Elantra used to be a step below the Civic, but now I would say it's comparable to the Civic. It's not one of the like Hyundai is not a company to really scoff at anymore, even though that's how it was years ago.
Yeah, they've definitely come a ways.
Right. So for this specific car, it's the N version. There's also the N line, which is a um, less powerful one. Essentially, it's like a fake M version of the N.
Yeah, I think their N models come with enhanced like performance,
Mhm.
more powerful engines, other performance tweaks, and then for inline, it's more of just the cosmetics. Like your
Mhm.
car looks, it's like a appearance package
Mhm.
in essence.
So just like the fake M's.
Yeah.
Yeah, the this N line is effectively what M is. M as in there's N as in Nancy, and then there's BMW M as in um I don't know what starts with an M. There has to be some name Margaret. The BMW Margaret division. But basically the N line, or rather N, is headed by Albert Biermann, which is now Hyundai's head of like automotive design, and he was hooked from the BMW, um, like BMW as a company, like or rather he used to work at BMW, and then Hyundai hired them away, which seems to be the trend for most Korean companies. Like for instance, Samsung, they just hired all the former Sony engineers, and now that's why they're such a good company. um, yeah, so Hyundai took a playbook out of that, and I would say that because of like Albert Biermann, like he's one of the major reasons why Hyundai has become such a tour de force in the automotive industry as of recently.
Yeah, that's a cool history lesson.
Yeah. Yeah, but more on the Elantra N itself. So this comes with the either 6-speed manual or an optional like the 8-speed dual clutch automatic, which we've seen in I believe the
Veloster.
Veloster. Yeah, that's the.
I think some other Hyundais have it.
And also some of the Genesis cars, like the
Yeah.
Genesis G70, also has that 8-speed dual clutch. So we're looking at a good transmission here. I know that before, or at least for the G70, there were some complaints that the automatic was just not as responsive as some of the ZF offerings or the German offerings. So it seems like Hyundai was able to dial that in and make that a much more snappy transmission.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think it's the age-old question, or rather, every new car we talk about, we have to ask, who is this car for? I think this car is, because of how it's now on par with Civic. This is aimed squarely at the Civic Si.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I know we talked about in the past where the Civic Si not having the coupe version is I think it hurt the Civic brand, specifically the Si part. But now there is a Civic Si 4-door sedan, and in my opinion, I don't think that car is particularly striking.
The Civic Si?
Yeah.
I mean, the Type R is going to be the one that's really visually striking.
Right.
Yeah.
But not everyone's going to buy a Type R, and I think also we also discussed this in a previous episode that we're sure that Honda has done the market research to determine that the Type R is where most of these enthusiast demographics, the enthusiast demographic ends up choosing over the Si. So now that Honda has essentially has not put as much effort into the Si, I think Elantra or Hyundai has noticed that and is trying to move in with this Elantra N.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I would say I think it looks better than the Civic.
I think it's definitely in line with the other Hyundai offerings lately, with pretty aggressive angles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty aggressively styled. It kind of reminds me of the previous generation Civic.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like is it the 6th gen? I want to say.
The one before the 2022.
Oh.
So no, it's 6th gen's a while ago.
6th gen is a while ago. That's correct. 9th gen? This one was the ugly one. The 9th gen was the ugly Civic. The 10th gen...
I think it's the 10th gen I'm talking about.
Is like a return to form. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the most recent one was 10th gen.
Yeah.
I was thinking 8th gen. We're just going to look at every single Civic generation. 8th gen was kind of the one that I remember the most because, I don't know, the years from 06 to 11 were... I wouldn't say it was the best looking Civic, but I think I feel like I've seen the most of this generation in terms of Civic, and they're still out there because of how darn reliable these cars are. But I would say it has that kind of swoopy line. If you look at the 8th gen, and if you look at the Hyundai, you kind of see the similarities there.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. As far as engine goes, this Elantra N has a 2-liter turbo 4, very stereotypical of the Econobox sports car, or Econobox enthusiast version.
Yeah, but it's tuned. It's kind of turned up, right, to 270 horsepower.
270 is quite a lot for a 4-cylinder.
Yeah, especially in such a small car.
Right.
So I'm sure it's plenty fast.
I want to say that right now the most powerful 4-cylinder is the A45 AMG, and that thing puts out a stonking 380 horsepower or something, just absolutely.
I think 400.
Is it really?
Yeah, 400 in for the A45S.
That's nuts.
In the EU.
So by comparison, that this makes this engine look rather meager. That's only 3/4 of an A45 engine.
Yeah, but I'm sure it'll still be plenty of fun.
Right.
Yeah, but don't expect 0 to 60 in 3 seconds or anything.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that this reminds me of is actually essentially the GTI versus the GLI. Mm-hmm. So if you wanted this hatchback form, you would go for the Veloster. But if you wanted 4 doors, then you would go for the Elantra N. So it's almost. I think we commonly see with the German manufacturers where, you know, Mercedes, BMW, Audi, they all have their own version of a specific car, like your soupy SUV or your Roadster, and they purposely match it up to compete with one another. And I guess in this segment, even though Hyundai and Volkswagen aren't necessarily from the same country or anything, they're like matching it up and then driving competition themselves.
Yep.
Yeah. Anything else to say about the Elantra N?
No, I think we covered it.
Yeah, we were pretty thorough with that one.
We even got a bit of a history lesson there.
I got some Albert Bierman talk. Like that guy has like achieved cult figure status. I feel like everyone always talks about him with such reverence that he's almost like Ferdinand Porsche, except like of the modern era. Yeah. Moving on to another car that was released this week, we saw the Lincoln Zephyr, which is a limousine-style car released for China, the Chinese market specifically. Yeah, what do you think about this one?
So this is really interesting since I think Ford has stopped making sedans in the U.S. In favor of all SUVs,
Right.
and instead they're releasing the sedan in China. So I think it kind of goes to say like the customer preferences are a bit different. Like I think if they released this here in the U.S., it probably would not sell that well.
Yeah, I think that's really unfortunate. I mean, Lincoln before they pulled out or they got rid of their sedans, they had the MKZ and the Continental, and I would say that I really like the way the Continental looked at least. That was more of a S-Class competitor, but the main problem plaguing that car was that even though it was an S-Class competitor, it was just like not on the same level, and even though there was actually the sales were like okay, I think in the last production year they sold 2 cars in the whole year or something crazy like that. But I did like that car, and looking at the Zephyr, a lot of people are saying it looks like the Audi A7, which it kind of does.
Yeah, it does. It has the...
Not gonna deny that, but I do like the way it looks.
Yeah, I think A7 is a pretty great looking car.
Yeah, I mean we've seen from like the Lincoln Navigator, like Lincoln and as well as the other domestic brands have really stepped up their luxury game. It's really like you can see from the interior, you have the surrounding screen. That probably looks like a 50-something inch, if not longer.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of those like edge-to-edge screens.
Right, but the thing is...
It's definitely the thing like for luxury cars now.
It has that wow factor that luxury car owners or potential buyers really want.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of new like trends in cars kind of go for that wow factor. Like piano black, in a sense, as well.
It was a wow factor, and then they realized the wow did not last very long. And
yeah,
then they got
but as long as it looks great in the showroom, like this will look great in the showroom, right? It's like those giant TVs you see at Costco. Like they look great, but then you like buy it in your house and it takes up your whole wall, and you're not so sure about it anymore.
Really, I don't think that's the biggest issue in buying a nice TV, or like rather like getting a TV. I think the problem is when the TV is easily outdated.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
You bought a 4K, and then next year it's like, oh, it's 4K 120 hertz, and you're like, oh dang, I should have gotten the next year. And then it's like tech moves so fast, and because cars have become basically tech devices, they're all instantly outdated.
Yeah, that's the problem. Like TVs, you can just get a new one, but with your car, like if you want to change the screen, what are you gonna do? Get a new car?
Basically, that's why there's a lot of these car share programs going on. Yeah, that was that's a bit off topic, but I'm sad that we're not going to see this in the U.S. just because even if it's a little bit of an A7 knockoff, it'd still be cool to see more of these soupy back sedans.
Or sedans at all, right?
Yeah, it's a dying breed.
Yeah. So we'll just look at this from afar.
From afar, or whenever we go to China or something.
And then, so the next thing, so this is pretty big, actually.
Yeah. This is actually sad news.
Yeah, this is definitely sad news. So we have Dodge. They're going to stop producing their Hellcat. I think all of their like Hellcat powered cars in 2023.
Yeah.
So that's coming up pretty quick.
Yeah, they've already teased the successor to it, which is going to be an E-muscle car, which I think that's an oxymoron.
Yeah, it's like the Mustang Mach-E, right?
Here's the thing, though. At least they're still sticking to what looks like a coupe.
Yeah, I'll give them that. Instead of just slapping like the Mustang name on just something.
Yeah. Yeah. So, which cars do they have the Hellcat engine in? We were looking at
the Challenger, the Charger, and I think also the Durango.
Durango, yes.
Yeah.
Is it not the 392? The one that's
the Durango like SRT, and then we have the Jeep like Trackhawk. Yeah.
Oh, so that car's also gonna be discontinued because they're getting rid of the Hellcat engine.
Yeah, at least the Trackhawk would be. I mean, the Grand Cherokee will still be around, but not the Trackhawk.
But wait, there's no they're not saying anything for the Ram 1500 T-Rex. So are we going to continue seeing that after 2023?
That's still up there, I think.
Right, because the T-Rex just came out this year.
Yeah, I don't think they want to comment about discontinuing it right away.
Right.
Maybe like some.
But it's probably gonna happen.
Yeah, probably sometime between now and 2023.
Yeah,
they'll talk about that.
So I know a lot of people really wanted to see the Chrysler Pacifica with the Hellcat engine.
Yeah.
So I think because of this news, we're not going to be seeing that.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
So I think what's interesting is that Dodge has kind of in recent years like crafted this image for itself based on their Hellcat engine, and like starting with I think the Challenger. So they have this whole like image based on this one engine and Hellcat everything.
Right.
And now that they're moving to like EVs and E-muscle, do you think the same like buyers who go for Hellcats would happily switch to their new EVs, or will they like jump ship to other manufacturers that are still making like V8s?
Who's the alternative if you don't get a Hellcat engine? Ford is not going to keep building their V8s.
Yeah.
Chevy has the Z06, which is a V8, or rather a C8, C8 is a V8.
Yeah, C8. Yeah.
Or the Camaro Z01. But, you know, this goes back to that one episode we did talking about tribalism. Like, domestic cars have an intense, like extremely intense tribalistic crowd, so to speak, you know? If you are team Mopar, you're not going to switch to another brand. Even if it was, you know, even if they got rid of the V8 or the Hellcat engine, you know?
Yeah, you're not going to switch, but would you, like, buy an E-muscle car?
I think the sales are going to be slow at first. Until they realize that, oh, hey, electric cars are also freaking fast, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they, like, realize that by now with, like, the Model S Plaid and, like, other electric cars. But, I mean, I feel like a lot of Dodge buyers, like, they really want this image of being, you know, loud and obnoxious.
So
while being fast?
I don't think necessarily that the E-muscle image cannot be also loud and obnoxious. You're not going to have engine noise, but you're probably going to have, like, a burnout mode in there.
Yeah.
Right? Like, especially with how powerful and how torquey electric motors are, like, I'm sure it's going to be...
You can't do a burnout on the street, right? Like, from a stoplight, you can...
In an electric car?
I mean, you're not... Like,
you're not allowed to?
Yeah, you're not allowed to.
Well, that doesn't...
That's
the thing,
just,
though.
like, rev it out in a V8.
But the same owners would definitely do a burnout on the street.
So you're saying that we'll see more burnouts in the next few years?
I would say that like the point I'm getting at is that I think Dodge can still craft that obnoxious, loud character, even if their cars are all electric and silent, because they'll still be the #1 brand for hooligans to go purchase an $80,000 car with a 25% APR and burn rubber and like do drag races like on an empty road. The difference is that we just won't hear any engine noise. Which, I mean, is there really like there's not really any electric drag racing right now, right?
No, but I think for a lot of new EVs, like something that manufacturers have been really trying to focus people's attention on is their like 0 to 60 and straight line performance.
Yeah, and I remember like when the Hellcat came out. There was this one guy who wrote a post and he was saying, congrats, you bought a new Hellcat. Here's and there's 3 things you shouldn't do. One is don't use the black key to try to race someone because you need the red key so it unlocks all the power. The second thing was like I can't remember what the second one was, but the most important one was don't race Teslas because you're gonna lose. So like if that's the question though. Like these people, or rather, people who buy Hellcats expect all-out performance, and they were already purchasing, a car that was not all-out performance, that was losing to electric cars. So now that it's going to be electric, I think this means that the e-muscle is better bang for the buck, or more in line with what the original target demographic wanted. Right?
Yeah, but I still think they're not going entirely for performance. Like they still want to be loud,
right,
and obnoxious while being pretty fast.
Hence the burnout mode, which I predict we'll see.
Okay,
I'll bet money.
We'll see if that prediction comes true.
Yeah, we didn't get to really look at the e-muscle concept because that came before our podcast, I believe.
Yeah. I think like they'll release the concept next year. Mm-hmm. So there's not much to see. We just know it's coming.
The tweet when they announced it was "Performance made us do it," like as if it wasn't about being unable to meet the emission requirements.
Yeah, that's marketing for you.
Yeah. Do we have more time to talk about this? Because I did want to talk about. So, for quite a while, Tesla had been selling their emissions credits to Chrysler, Stellantis, and it was a transaction that worked out because Tesla was making a lot of money from it, and Stellantis, was able to continue selling their cars without having to, or rather, it allowed them to continue selling them because it didn't break their emissions limit. Right. So now that that's gone, that's a huge dip in revenue for Tesla, and it means Stellantis is gonna save a good amount of money. Yeah, that's all I had to say. Yeah.
So basically, Tesla's gonna go broke. It is.
I don't think they're gonna go broke, but that's just an effect of Stellantis going EV overall, and then I guess the entire market going EV. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyways. Yeah, and our final piece of news is a rumor from Automotive News, which is a publication that is saying that Porsche will be creating a 3-row luxury SUV that's going to be even bigger than their Cayenne.
So the Cayenne's been around for quite some time, I believe.
Yeah, since I remember when it came out in 2004.
Yeah. And then we have like Porsche competitors like BMW with the X7, mm-hmm. Which is bigger than the Cayenne. And I think Mercedes also has the GLS. Mm-hmm. So I think it makes perfect sense that Porsche is ready to like release this 3-row SUV. Mm.
The thing is, is Benz, Beamer, and Audi really Porsche competitors? Audi is, Audi is like just in that weird position because they're in the same parent company, Volkswagen Auto Group, or Volkswagen Auto Group, not Volkswagen Audi Group, but which has a very terrible, not terrible, but unfortunate acronym. But like we've seen, they work together. For instance, on certain platforms like the MLB Evo platform, where they have the Q5, or rather the Q7, the Cayenne, and then the Bentayga and the Urus, which is like not in the same, not even in the same realm. But they share a platform. So at this point, you can essentially, like, I think Porsche realized that, for one, even though these other companies are not our competitors, we can still enter this market space because it's cheap enough to do so. So what they're going to do is just going to take the Q7's platform and slap a Porsche badge on it. I think that's what's going on.
So it's kind of like the reverse of the Taycan and Audi e-tron.
Exactly. So for one question is, does that make them competitors? Are they even in the same realm, like the e-tron and the Taycan?
I think they are.
Right. So then, too, isn't that cannibalizing your own sales from a platform? You may have co-developed it, but I guess this is very similar to the Toyobaru. Like, having the BRZ and the GR86 from the same platform, same engine, everything, but the difference is that they're sold by two different companies. Is that cannibalizing sales?
Like total sales?
From one manufacturer together. The thing is, the difference there is that Toyota and Subaru are not the same, like, parent. There's no parent organization, but at least in this one, there is a parent organization.
Yeah.
So I think it's not as bad, but you're competing against yourself, which is not generally not a good thing, right?
Yeah.
At least from a corporate, or rather a business standpoint.
Yeah, but I think the Porsche version of this new like 3-row SUV, it'll probably like have more focus on the driving experience,
which makes no sense, right?
But I've heard like complaints about the X7 and how it handles.
The X7 does handle well, or at least better than the GLS, right?
I've heard it doesn't handle very well. It's really? Kind of like a boat.
But what do you expect the X7 to be besides a boat? It's a 3-row SUV, It's a luxury.
Yeah, but maybe this Porsche one will handle better than the X7.
Yeah, and I think this is like I feel like every single topic we talk about goes back to another topic we had talked about in another episode. But just like the soupy or coupe SUVs, what's the point of having them handle well? And this one makes even less sense if you're talking about, an SUV that should handle well. If you're going to have 3 rows, you have people who are all passengers. Are they going to care how fast you can take a corner, or like how, planted it is?
I think it's just for scaring your passengers.
So if you want to scare 2 passengers, you just get a Panamera. So this is for people who want to scare 5 people.
Their whole family.
Not only just their family, but their extended family,
yeah.
Their aunts and uncles.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if they have recognized this as a way to make more money, props to them. But it's at the cost of devaluing and like losing focus of the Porsche brand.
Yeah, but at the same time, like the enthusiasts who buy like Porsches, like the 911, are they really gonna care that Porsche is coming out with a 3-row SUV? Like, it's not like I wouldn't care if I were looking to a 911. The thing is with these SUVs, like there's a good amount of demand for them, so it's definitely a money grab. And if selling this makes Porsche money, then they can invest more money into their enthusiast cars, which I'm not complaining about.
So that's one way to look at it. But I think there's also, like, when you're at that point, or rather, like, imagine you are a wealthy businessman, blah, 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 I can buy a Porsche 911, right? and you buy one for the prestige, for the history, for the name, for the the freaking like everyone like not everyone but like a lot of people really care about what that name is, right? And then you have a 3-row SUV that has a Porsche logo pull up next to you, and he goes, "Oh, I have the same car." I think that upsets the businessman, right?
Yeah. I think it's kind of similar to like what BMW has become in recent years.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I think it's fair to say like right now they're not the ultimate driving machine.
I don't think they even have that logo on their website anymore.
But they were before, and they kind of diluted their brand with SUVs and
and brand dilution is important, But I think that just kind of becomes like I think Porsche is used to it at this point, where it's like, oh, that's just a vocal minority we don't really care about anymore.
Yeah, but at the same time, we don't know like
BMW's new slogan is "Ultimate Electric Driving Machine."
Okay. Yeah, they still have the ultimate driving machine.
Yeah, for cars that are not electric.
Yeah. But at the same time, I'm not sure like what direction Porsche wants to go. Like maybe in their corporate they actually want to go kind of move more towards the BMW direction, which is a bit unfortunate.
It's unfortunate, but I still don't think that they're necessarily competing at the same level. We have it's always been kind of like Benz, Beamer, Audi, and then Porsche was above them because they were race cars. Now they're also making. I guess it's like. This is the same opinion that a lot of Cayenne owners, or rather people who were Porsche owners, saw the Cayenne like as like a sign that Porsche was going to go downhill as a brand. But I think we're at a point where maybe it's acceptable. maybe we just like let it be. And I say we like I own a Porsche, but I don't own a Porsche. But yeah, I think that's just the way the industry's going.
Yeah, and the Cayenne is their biggest seller right now. So
is it? I thought it was a Macan.
I think it's the biggest seller.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Cayenne is a big seller, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it makes sense.
Yeah,
we might not like it, but it makes sense.
That's true.
So I think that's it for this week's car news.
Mm.
So next we'll get into our what grinds my gears section.
Yeah. So I would say what grinds my gears today, this week, is the engine start-stop function. To some, it's like a necessary evil, where all these manufacturers are trying to meet these emissions requirements, and that start-stop function will meet that requirement. Like, it makes it a little bit easier to meet that requirement, right?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like low-hanging fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of spending all this engineering money to make your engine like 2% more efficient, you could just slap on a start-stop, and then there you get that 2% efficiency.
Right.
But the issue is like if they do their like certifications with the start-stop, like their MPG and their test cycles, then they have to have it in the vehicles, and they can't allow you to disable it altogether. So that's like mandated, and that's why you can turn on start-stop when you start your car, but you can't disable it altogether.
Yeah, I mean, I think at first when it came out, it was universally hated. Like you would come to stop at a stop sign, it would shut off the engine, and then when you start moving, all of a sudden your engine would shake to life violently, and like all that for like one MPG.
Yeah.
I would say it's good that manufacturers have gotten a little better at it. They've improved the engine mounts, at least for like luxury brands. A lot of them have switched to like a 48-volt hybrid system that allows the car to like shut off the engine momentarily, or like at least the startup is not as brutal.
Yeah, it's a lot more refined recently.
But it still comes back to it's a nuisance. So this is like a transitional period feature bug feature. So what's the solution to start-stop?
EVs.
Okay.
I think the ultimate solution is EVs.
Okay.
But if I had a choice, I'd either have an EV or just no start stop. Just keep my engine on the whole time.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there another solution? Like, I know right now it's like you said you can't disable it entirely.
Mm-hmm.
Every time you have to manually disable it. What if they like? I guess if they put like bigger cats or like more emission defeating devices, I guess it'd be more expensive than start stop.
Yeah.
But manufacturers don't care enough, or rather, they would rather save the costs than do more engineering.
Yeah, I think also they kind of factored in that most consumers aren't really in tune with what the car is doing, like enthusiasts are.
Mm-hmm.
Like most enthusiasts, they will hear any like change in how their engine sounds. But most people just driving their crossovers, like they won't even realize if their engine shuts off, right?
That's horrifying.
Yeah, as long as they have their AC blasting, they wouldn't even notice if their engine is off.
Yeah, these are probably the same people who drive down the highway with like a missing tire or something.
Yeah.
The car's just scraping.
Yeah. So I think manufacturers, they did the research, they realized a good proportion of people probably wouldn't care or would be mildly offended. But would not care enough to sway them into buy another car, and that's why we have start stop.
So the moral of the story is, for one, it should be the manufacturer's fault, but two, drivers should be better at noticing their cars, and they should be dissuaded from buying start stop cars.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I think that wraps up this episode. Do you have any upcoming news or rumors for next week? Any whispers?
Haven't heard anything. I think this week has been a bit slower than usual because of Thanksgiving holiday.
Right. Toyota Thought's probably going on.
Yeah.
Or Happy Honda Days. Pick your poison. Yeah, but until then, thanks for listening. Our website is now up and running. Check out thisweekincars.com.
Yeah.
And also check out our YouTube. We'll be posting our project updates on there for Project Saratoga. So lots more to come. But yeah, thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening.